Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams.
Hello and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host, Layci Nelson, and former terrible leader. So we are going to talk about a superpower of making the invisible visible. This topic came up this weekend as I was preparing for writing a book. I'm working on a book right now, which is really still weird and scary to say out loud, but it's happening. And in the process of developing this book outline, I was talking with someone who is way smarter than me and helping me with this process. And we were discussing how many hidden rules there are when you are welcomed into a new community, or maybe not welcomed into a new community. You feel like maybe part of why you feel like you're not welcomed is because you don't understand the game. Like you don't understand the rules of the game because you can't even see them. So what the heck am I talking about? Let me give some context. So when any team forms, it has its own set of rules, what are called the norms or the invisible rules of what it means to be on this team. And everyone coming into the team also has a set of invisible rules that they hold. And depending, some different things that can make the rules different is when we have people from different socioeconomic backgrounds coming together, different cultures coming together. They all come with their own set of invisible rules. And leaders that are exceptional, A, understand this, B, don't assume that one person's set of rules, one class, one culture is the quote unquote right way to do it, but they understand that they exist and they make an effort to bring what is invisible visible and incorporate with intention a team of people that honors, respects each other's, and has an agreed upon, previously invisible, visible new set of norms for how we are together collectively. All right, let's wrap some context around this because right now it is a very heady kind of out there in the ethos concept. So we're going to bring it down to the ground and make it real. How do we make the invisible visible? Let's start first. And I feel like I can speak to this because I actually was raised in a very low income upbringing. Poverty has a lot of invisible rules. And I then hopped into different classes and engaged with different socioeconomic status classes over time and have this unique perspective of being able to look and see just the wild contrast between rules and what people think is valuable in these different settings. So this is one of the best, I can't take credit for this example. I don't remember where I heard it, but it is one of the best examples I have heard of that really quickly brings us into focus. If you were raised where there just wasn't enough, resources were scarce. If you were raised in poverty and you had a meal, the first question your mom would ask you about that meal was typically, did you get full? If you were raised middle class, the first question would be, did you like it? Or was it good? And if you're raised in the wealthy category, typically the response is, how was the presentation of the food? That's the question. How did it look? Was it presented well? What was the dining experience like? And I can tell you, having participated in every single one of those buckets, that has been dead true to my own experience. And it really brings into focus quickly and sharply how dramatically different our assumptions, what we value, what we're looking for, the invisible rules come into play. So let's talk about another invisible rule when it comes to learning how to transition from one class to another class. One of the differences and something I had to learn was how to present myself depending on what environment I was going to be in. So if I'm in an environment where the way that I present myself is not nearly weighed as important as how I'm connecting and treating people, that's one set of rules. Another set of rules is you always dress to the nines and you present yourself 1,000,000%. It's like wear a hoodie, wear a suit. You could be delivering the exact same information, but understanding there's norms around that, right? What's the dress code? What's the unspoken dress code?
Hey listeners, Mary Scott here, producer of Confessions of a Terrible Leader. Are you a seasoned business owner or leader with some hard-won wisdom earned along the way? If you would like to share your very own terrible leader moment, we are now accepting guest applications for our podcast. That's right, you can apply to be a guest on Confessions of a Terrible Leader. The guest application is linked in the show notes and is up on our website, transcendleadershipcollective.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And now, back to Layci.
An experience that my sister had when she was participating in life in a different class for one of the first times was that they were all on vacation together, and people would actually like shower and change before dinner, which some of you might be going like, well, of course. Where she was just completely blown away because that was not a priority. First of all, we didn't go on fancy vacations. And secondly, you just wore what you wore and it wasn't even a concept. So you're starting to see this invisible, right? And I would love to hear some of your experiences with visible and invisible rules. Well, friends, teams have the same thing. And you pull in all of these different life experiences, which I hope your team has a whole bunch of different life experiences from all these different backgrounds. And you can immediately see how there's these different norms, expectations. Well, what are some of the norms in teams that you need to be really intentional about? And bringing the invisible, making the invisible visible when you are a leader immediately sets people at ease because they know how to win. So it's like showing up for dinner where everyone else showered and got dressed and you didn't know. So you show up in your swimsuit cover and your bikini with your hair on your head still. And you're immediately like, it's a horrific feeling. I hope no one has to experience that. But if you have, that's a horrible feeling, right? So people want to know how to belong. And we need to be able to make that explicitly clear from the beginning and be aware when the norms are defaulting to the most powerful and just assuming that those are the right ones instead of with intention choosing what are our norms going to be and why. So meetings. Our norm on our team is our meetings start on time and they end on time. People can count on them like clockwork, which I got to keep this short because I've got a meeting with my team coming up, but they start on time and they end on time. That's not the norm in every organization. Sometimes it's they start 10 minutes after they're supposed to start and they go to who knows how long, right? So when you're a leader, you can set that norm. This is how we operate. It also, like, how can you make the invisible visible and bring it to the surface and deal with it with intention is how is your team about collaboration? Is it a norm that you're going to talk about working on projects together, that you're going to invite people's input, that even if it's maybe not in their wheelhouse, but they're interested in it, that they're invited, or is that not the way it works? And how do you collaborate with other organizations across the company? Is your team siloed? Do you want them to not be siloed? I hope that's your response. Do you want to have cross-functional teams happening? You have to create those norms and make them a spoken intention, or they're just going to default to what people are most comfortable with. And sometimes when you have conflict, it's when you have two sets of different unspoken invisible norms of team experiences, and then they're merged onto a new team, and they're coming in with different sets of expectations and trying to operate in these invisible rules, and no one's ever told them how to play the game. So you have to make the invisible visible. It is such an important skill set. So I'm going to give you a quick checklist of just a beginning checklist of thinking about what are my invisible rules on my team that I need to actually work on making visible with intention. So trust, clarity of roles and who's doing what, and what feels like stepping on someone's toes and getting in someone's lane and what doesn't. What's the expectation for volunteering or the norm to help other people? How do you use influence? Is it a norm that there's going to be a meeting after the meeting, or do you create the norm right up front that we don't do that? We get it out on the table and we talk about it right now. Meeting after the meeting teams do not function well. They function, just it's painful. What's your risk tolerance? Do you want the new ideas thrown out there? Are you willing to look at something if you can't see the immediate shareholder ROI? Do you still want to hear about it? What's your norm? How about your own meeting standards? Do you start on time? Do you end on time? Do you expect people to come ready? If there's pre-reading or work, do you expect them to come to the table ready to go and talk about it? Do you give a silent 5 minutes to catch up? See what I'm saying? There's so many invisible rules. I want you to think through them, figure out what's invisible, what you want to bring to the surface, and make visible for your team and the way you operate, and move forward with intention. And understand everyone's also coming with their own invisible set of norms and rules from previous team experiences and previous life experiences. So if you can start acknowledging the invisible, bringing it to visibility, and making room for all kinds of different lived experiences, and deciding with intention instead of just defaulting to the most powerful person at the table's norms are going to be ours, you're going to have a massive level of belonging and engagement, a bump like you probably haven't seen for a long time. So there you go. That is your take it, run with it, make the invisible visible. You have a superpower. If you can tap into this, you have tapped into a superpower. So we want to hear, hit us up. Go follow us on LinkedIn or follow us on Facebook or all the places you can find the Transcend Leadership Collective. And we would love to hear how you are making the invisible visible and if this struck for you. All that said, can't wait to hear about it. Until next time, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If you are in the early stages of leadership, or you are currently in a leadership position and are supervising rising leaders within your organization, you are going to want to learn more about our virtual live community created specifically for emerging leaders. Our first virtual cohort begins on April 2nd, and remember, this is a live virtual community, so you can sign up from anywhere. You will be connecting with other heart-first leadership-minded individuals and learning together. Sign up for our free newsletter, the link is in the show notes, to be the first to know when registration goes live and receive first access. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, go manage like a leader.